friend Angie's here to go live with me and to talk about her experience in the pre-launch plan program. She's also the host of Permission to Kick Ass, and I'm excited to introduce you to her. So Angie, tell everyone all the things. Angie and I've actually met in person too, more than once. So we're like real life friends on top of it.
Yes, we are. For some reason my brain went immediately to The Hangover. I'm like, we're the two best friends. But anyway, that's not entirely accurate, but we are friends.
Well, maybe we should tell the story, because I feel like I was in a movie the last time we were together, but we can talk about that in a second.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I am a leadership and confidence coach for creative entrepreneurs and service providers, basically anybody that has a creative team, because if you have a creative team and you are trying to figure out how to be a manager and a leader while juggling all of the stuff that goes on with growing your business, nobody really teaches you that stuff. Nobody really talks about that stuff in our space. And that's a problem that I really see becoming more and more prevalent as we embrace AI. You're going to have to get good at peopling if you want to grow your business. And that's what I help you do.
Yeah, and I love that. It's funny, coincidentally, I wasn't even thinking about this before we came on. I had a situation, like an interpersonal situation that happened a couple months ago, and there was a miscommunication today, and I just happened to talk to the person who I had this miscommunication with, and it was just like, oh, once we talked about it, it was like, oh, we saw a scenario very differently. And if we would have, and I'll take self-responsibility here. Like if I would have just had these skills to have this conversation, I'm one of those people that just like hides, like, okay, I don't like this to be uncomfortable. I'm going to go hide somewhere. And so if I would have just had this uncomfortable conversation, everything would have been fine. And so it's just like, I do agree with you. Like we get thrown into these online businesses, and this isn't something that, like, none of us are taught. I know even when I worked for corporate, this stuff wasn't taught to us. So.
Well, and there's an extra special danger these days too, especially if you are building a business online and you don't have like a local entrepreneur community to help, or you don't have a mentor that you can go to with issues. What do you do when you're having a problem or when you're having a client issue and you're wondering was this my mistake? Am I misinterpreting here? You go to a Facebook group or you go to some other online entrepreneur group. Don't do that. Don't do that. I know we're going off on a side tangent here, but that is where the pitchfork mob lives. The pitchfork mob's only job is to get outraged at your situation because they're all seeing their own past crappy client situations in your current situation, right? So they don't have the full context. They don't know what your client was thinking any more than you do. And they're going to jump on this bandwagon and help get you up, like riled up and seeing red and fire that client, they're bad, when it could have just been a miscommunication all along. And so that's what I try and help people realize. It's like when those feelings get high and you want to lean into avoidance, just like you were talking about, Brenna, that's the time to have the uncomfortable conversation. And nobody likes it, but you're going to respect each other and build that much deeper of a connection for actually having the bravery to do it. And it is totally brave.
And I think too, it's and having the guidance too, right? Because even with these uncomfortable conversations, it could still go sideways. So I think that's what I love, is what you help people with is figuring out like how to have this. And I love your journey, because you didn't do this all the time. You came from the launch world, and not like any launch world. Jeff Walker launch world, who pretty much like created launching in some respects. So can you tell people a little bit about this transition, because it actually goes into why you decided to join the pre-launch plan program?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so deep into the launch world that I used to introduce myself as a joke as Jeff Walker when I was speaking on stage at conferences, and people would always laugh, and I was like, no, seriously, the emails that you're getting from Jeff Walker are from me and my team. And so for years, I'd have people walking up to me at conferences and going, hey, Jeff, how's it going? And I was like, all right, well, I shot myself in the foot with that one. But yeah, taught launches was as Jeff, and was the objection buster on the team. Like that's how deeply into it I was. And I loved it. It's an opportunity to be creative, and what he's built has allowed so many people to create these incredible online businesses. I mean, I know when I started working with him, I never could have envisioned a reality where somebody taught dog training online or somebody taught tennis lessons online. But that has opened up a whole world of entrepreneurship possibilities that didn't exist before. And also, by the same token, a lot of people watch what he does and they're not necessarily listening to what he says. So I can't tell you how many times over the years that I work with him that people would come to me for outside strategy consultations. And the first thing in their minds is, I want to do a Jeff Walker PLF style launch. Well, first of all, there's like 20 different Jeff Walker style PLF launches, but all anybody sees is the big joint venture, the big, huge production that he does, where all of the, you know, the Ryan Levesques and the Amy Porterfields of the world are mailing for him. And it's a huge spectacle. And there are tens of thousands of people and they make millions and millions of dollars of sales in a week. Do you know how much you have to spend to make a launch like that possible? I don't
I
think
can't
most
even
people do.
imagine. And I can't even imagine, because I worked with a client who brought me on. They were doing a, probably not to that extent, but a PLF launch. And I was like, never again. Like, I will never do this. And I was a copywriter at the time. I'm like, and I think too, it's like, does it make sense for my business? Like, that's what
Yeah.
what people just say, oh, I'm just going to do this strategy, but aren't understanding it as a strategist. And it's so much
Mhm.
work. And I can only imagine how much money it was.
Oh yeah, they're seeing is the multi-million-dollar payday in one short cart week, and they're going, I want that. But they're not seeing the 6 months of lead up and investment into that made that possible. And that's with a proven offer. There were a lot of folks that would come to me with a brand new offer and say, I want that multi-million-dollar JV launch. And I would be like, I'm not the one. It's too big of a risk. I don't think you have enough of the dominoes lined up for this to fall the way that you want. And they didn't like me for it, but I also wasn't the one on the hook at the end of the day. If they wanted to do that launch, they could get that launch. But I also think that a lot of what they missed was a lot of what you teach, Brenna, in that they just thought of this whole approach, the PLC and the stuff that he teaches, as a long extended sales letter. And I I ruined one big name dude's launch because we were an affiliate promotion for him. And the way he had done his pre-launch content was basically just a sales letter broken into 4 pieces. And so when I was writing the promotion emails for it, Jeff challenged me and said, we really like to teach in these emails and tell stories. Where is the value? And I said, here's the video. If you can find value that I couldn't find, please, I would love to get your help and your take on this. And sure enough, he went through it and saw that it was a sales message. And then he called Mr. Big Name and said, I can't mail for this because it's basically just a sales message. And you know that I like to give value to my people. So then he had to like pull everything back and redo his pre-launch content so that Jeff Walker would mail for him. It was insane. But they think of it as this big extended sales sequence where you're pushing and you're talking about the value of the program and you're trotting out your case studies. And then the way that you have done this, where it's a conversation and it's just educating people without any kind of expectation on the other side of just sharing what this journey is like. So brilliant, so brilliant.
Thank you. And well, and I think that would be my question for you, is, and maybe you've already hit on it, because like, what made you, being a launch expert, like what made you decide to join me in this program?
Oh, I I actually had somebody else ask me that too, and she asked me in a well-meaning but like mildly snarky tone, like, you're a launch expert. Why exactly are you signing up for somebody to teach you launches? And I said, I'm not signing up for somebody to teach me launches. There's not much about launches that I don't know at this point. I've been in and outside all of them. But what I need is somebody to show me what reality looks like through an undistorted mirror. And she was like, what the hell does that even mean? I said, the mirror that I look in is warped. It's filled with overwhelm. It's filled with mixed messages. It's filled with all kinds of stuff that's swirling around in my head. And I don't necessarily see things accurately, right? And I needed a program where someone was going to tell me the truth about what was possible, about the awesomeness that they could see in me and what I was building, in a non-hypey, like, oh, I love everybody kind of way. Like, I don't get that sense from you, and I never have, Brenna, that you were just like an artificial cheerleader, but that you genuinely look for what is really awesome about people and try to help them build toward that instead of fitting them into some sort of cookie cutter path. So that's what I was looking for, for something a little bit more true than what I could see in myself, for some outside support, for some unbiased cheerleading, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. Like, and this goes, and I especially like this last round, which was amazing, was like how many high level entrepreneurs, marketers copywriter is that we're a part of it. And I think it's that exactly what you said. And even I do this, like it's my own program. And it's like to have someone like validate, push back, question, think through things that you're not thinking through. Like that becomes, and this isn't me just tooting my own horn because I do this, with other people. I go to other mentors for this. It's just like having that like feedback is what makes a huge difference in where you can get clarity and unstuck, right? And I
Oh
think you
yeah.
probably see it, you coach in programs where the same thing happens.
Hmm. Just often you just need that one bit of outside perspective that helps you see the blind spot that
Mhm.
you would eventually been able to figure it out, but it probably would have taken a lot of headache and stress and time to get the same conclusion that somebody just going like, here's the mirror, what if we turned it this way? Oh, now I can see more. Oh, it can be that quick when you've got much better perspective. So I really, really enjoyed that. And you talked about it a little bit because obviously we made a big leap between how I introduced myself and where I've been in terms
Yes.
of a launch expert and a copywriter. But that was part of the struggle and why I wanted to join, because I know that launching is one tactic, one tried and true tactic to get a new offer off the ground, right? You get to sell the thing and then build it with the people that you've sold it to, and therefore create a product that is going to test the stand of time, or stand test the stand of time, stand the test of time. You know what I mean? Because you've co-created it instead of guessing at what people want, right? But I didn't know even how to approach that because I was making such a big change from copywriting to leadership. And I knew what I had experienced as somebody on an execution team, like a copywriting team, with a leadership facilitator. And I didn't want any part of that. So I didn't want to model my business on what they were doing with corporate leadership because I thought it was boring and outdated and forcing people into suits and like corporate mumbo jumbo. And who needs more of that? We need something different, something that actually takes into account the fact that people are the biggest part of your business, not the processes or the profit. Yes, you need all three, but without the people, your business sucks. It really just does. So all of that thought was swirling around in my head. And I'm like, I know I could create something, but I don't even know if there's a market for that. These are the people that I think need it, but I don't know if they know that they need this. And so the way that you walked through like the stages of awareness, getting voice of the customer research really just helped me clarify the offer. And in the end, I didn't wind up launching, but I did get that clarity on the offer that I wanted to make. And instead, I am taking it to corporate companies to get bigger projects so that way I can reverse engineer the problems that I help them deal with in the private consulting and then create a program that I can launch to entrepreneurs because it will have been tested in an environment already where creative teams need that leadership and that support. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I love that. And I love too, it's like some people will say like, when they come into the program, and I think there's um, different circumstances, if you will, of people. And I think it's like, do I need to have my offer created? And I would love for you to like speak to that just a little bit, because I think that there, in my mind, right, easy for me to say, but I would love to see what you think is like, I think one of the beauties of the program is if you are in the, it's like do the work that we do up front gives you the foundation for the offer. Obviously I'm not teaching if you don't have an audience, obviously it's going to be a little hard to launch anything too,
Mhm.
but doing that like foundational work around the offer with the program, do you feel like it was helpful once, I know you pivoted a little bit, but
Oh, yes. No, it was super helpful because it focused on speaking to the people that are struggling with what you think they're struggling with. And it still works if it's a hypothetical, if it's I'm breaking into the market and I don't quite know if this is accurate, but I have a sneaking suspicion. So all I did was reach out to people that I knew in that space. They're mid to high six figures on their entrepreneurial journey. They've had to hire a team, but don't necessarily think of themselves as leaders or managers or bosses or anything like that. But they also know that like, if this person quits, I'm screwed. If this person isn't doing what I want them to do, I have to be willing to have a hard conversation or fire them, or I am spending all of my time doing their job and mine and paying them, and that sucks and makes me resentful and hate this business. Right. So I reached out to several people I knew in that space and said, hey, I just want to ask some questions. This is what I'm thinking about building. What would you say are your biggest struggles around this? Like I followed your framework. And the interesting things to come out of that were that those fears that I just outlined were accurate. And also there was this resistance to the word leadership, especially in entrepreneurship, because they had the same associations as I did. It's like button down, corporate, stuffy. And I have to change who I am in order to be a leader. That was a fear that I didn't know existed until and then I started having conversations with other people in the space. And when I said that, one person shared this with me, is that a fear that you share? And they went, yeah, yeah. I don't want to have to change who I am. I don't want to have to learn an entirely new system and way of being in order to be a better team lead. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is a way that I could really help people, because I don't think that you have to look like it. You don't have to swear and cover yourself with tattoos to have success. You don't have to look like anybody other than yourself. There's a way to tap into your own natural strengths to build that connection. And that's what I really want to help people build.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think working through, and that's like something, if anyone's watching this now, I know we have some people on or later, it's like the
Hi,
cool part
people.
about the cool part about this program, I think, is that yes, you're coming out of the pre-launch, but you come out with so much other stuff that can assist you in creating new offers, getting your messaging down, creating content. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like what was your experience like inside the program?
I think it was great. I didn't even know that I was going to get this when I signed up, but I know I was already busy in a business partnership that didn't wind up working out when I was trying to build this. And so I had a lot of distractions that prevented me from showing up, and I was doing my best to keep up with the homework, but really struggling. And I remember coming to one of the live calls one day when that partnership ended and going, okay, here's where I'm at and here's what I think I'm trying to build. And I am just getting stuck in my own fear around people are going to judge me because I say the F bomb too much. And I'm a lot feistier than somebody that they would consider to be a leader. And I'm just struggling in my own fears. Does anybody even want something like this? And the program is still tentatively called Talk Like a Boss because I love it. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just say I love that. I love that name too. So
Yeah, which AI helped me generate. Thank you for the prompts on that. I think it spit out something like Talk Like a Boss Brigade, and I was like, that's freaking lame. But Talk Like a Boss is pretty cool. We'll use that. Um, and that I think is going to be the next evolution after I've gone into the corporate arena, because one thing that came up is that we need a space for people to be able to practice these hard conversation skills when the emotions and the relationship and the money isn't on the line, because that's often the only time that we have to practice talking to people when emotions are high or there's a problem or a conflict. We don't ever get a chance to practice that skill. So like I'm just ranting about all of this to them like I'm ranting about it to you now. Don't really have a rhyme or a reason or an approach to all of this. And people just started unmuting and being like, are you nuts? I need that. And they're typing furiously in the comments. Oh my God, I so freaking need that. And of course, we all know as marketers and business owners that there's a difference between somebody saying, I need this, and actually pulling out their wallet to buy it. But I totally trust the fact that they went out of their way to say, no, this is needed, this is necessary, and give me that support, that it feels it's validating to me. It shows me that something is right in my instincts, even though I don't see anything like this that I can model on, that following my instinct is the way to go. And that was the support that I didn't even know I was going to get when I signed up.
yeah, well, and that's one of the things I love about doing this program and why I do it, having coaching calls. And it's just like, that is the kind of feedback that if you're in your own head and you get stuck. And I love, and I was talking about this a little bit. I was recording modules for the I've recorded modules this time. And what I was talking about is like this like mix of like intuition and data, right? Like your intuition is what leads you, but then you need the data, the validation to make sure like, yes, like I'm going in the right direction, or no, I need to reroute. And I think that is the other cool thing when we're having these conversations on these coaching calls or getting feedback that happens.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that there are a lot of programs out there that they almost exclusively teach you to focus on the data And that's where I feel like a lot of people do their spinning out and getting really confused because the data is telling them one thing that goes against their instincts. I totally agree with you that I think it's got to be a balance of the data and the instincts. And yes, sometimes the data is going to tell you that your idea is off, but like sometimes you just got to follow your gut and see what happens. And so I'm very excited for this.
Yeah. And I think too, I actually talked about this in one of the modules, is like if you start like really analyzing, let's say Instagram, right? And even I did a post yesterday and I was like, okay, if I look at the post that I did, was it like my best post? Did it had the most comments? No. Did someone book a sales call with me right after I did that post? Yes. And I think those are the things. It's just like I call it data light. Like you have to have like that view on data because you want to make informed decisions, but you also need to go with what you know needs to be said because you just never know like who's listening. And I know we talked about really briefly before we came on that you really liked the content, the way I showed how to do content and that it was different than how you had seen it.
Because I think a lot of folks that follow Jeff kind of misinterpret a lot of the things that he's saying on multiple levels and apply it to things that don't necessarily make sense. Of course, Jeff is going to spend a lot of time nurturing and not making offers because he only opens his program like once or so a year. For those of us that have to launch more regularly, or that's part of our business model or whatever, it's got to be a good mix of like value, education, invitation to join. And that was where people were getting stuck because it was always that sales push, that sales push, that sales push. We're talking about us. We're talking about how awesome our product is. We might be talking about the transformation, but we're not unpacking it. And I think that's what you really have done with the pre-launch program is unpack the transformation, make it tangible. We really get down in the mud with what the problem is and what is happening in the broader industry. And we also have a step-by-step path to get them from that point to struggle to what this looks like afterward. And by the way, I know how to get you to after. That's what I've created this program to help you with. And the way that you've done it step by step without making it a sales push or like join here or opt in or like it has always been about giving, about educating. And I think you posted about it in the group the other day that it's not for your buyers. It's for the people who aren't going to buy from you, at least not now, but you're giving them enough to think about and you keep showing up in front of them and keep teaching that material. Then they're going to see you as the expert. And when they do have that problem, they know to come to you. I think it's brilliantly done.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And so, if anyone is like on the fence or thinking like, should I join this? This is great for me. What would you say?
I think that having a systematic way to walk through this, to break down the way your audience could be getting in their heads and struggling with this problem, the audience research method and the voice of the customer method that Brenna teaches is just going to help you get that much closer. Like, look at me. I love my experience in the program and I technically haven't launched, but am I going to launch and using this process? Absolutely. Stay tuned.
Exactly. Something you can use literally for, I feel like it's so broad, we're always, as copywriters, want to be specific. I'm like, but you can literally use this for the rest of your life, like this process. And it doesn't have to be to launch even paid products, right? It could be to do all kinds of things. So before we get off, I want to ask people or not ask people, I want to tell people like, where they can find you, about your podcast, about your book that's coming out. Like, tell us all the things, and I'll drop links in here once we're done.
Fantastic. So, as Brenna said, I'm the host of the Permission to Kick Ass podcast. You can find that on all major streaming services, Apple, Spotify, everything. Would love if you subscribe, if you share it with people, and if you leave a review and a rating. That really helps with the show and getting the word out. I also have a website, permissiontoKickAss.com. Where I talk a little bit more about leadership. You can sign up for emails there. I'll keep you updated to what's going on and when new podcasts drop. I'm also on social media as either at Permission to Kick Ass or at Angie Colee, wherever you are. So feel free to reach out, drop a line, let me know where you heard about me, ask me any questions you have. I talk to pretty much everybody. So.
Yes, Angie is so fun to talk to. And I appreciate you coming on today and sharing some time with us. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Okay.